Morgan McMichaels is joining us. Also with us, student at Grand Canyon University, Lily Stanley is here, alongside student at Roberts Wesleyan College, Anthony Watson. Great to see our student panelists today. As I understand, you're all students currently in college and you are all collecting loans, which, as we know, they have not been eliminated. You just wouldn't have to pay them now if perhaps you had a payment due August 31st or prior to that. So, Morgan, we'll start with you. What do you make of the Biden administration's decision to extend the freeze?
I honestly don't think we should be extending the freeze. With COVID now really being over, everyone needs to get back to work and start paying off their student loans because collecting debt over time is just going to end up hurting the students even more than if they were to pay off in short and small increments now. So I really think that we shouldn't be pausing them and continue to pay off our loans just as normal.
All right, Lily, let me go to you. How are you viewing it?
I mean, it's just delaying the inevitable. These kids need to get back into a regular system. Everything else is picking back up. They're going to have to pay them at some point. They need that sense of personal responsibility because it's not going to go away no matter how much they act like it might. So I think it's time that kids get back on their schedule if they haven't been already and start paying away that money that's just going to keep accruing.
All right. And Anthony, your thoughts here?
Hey, good morning, Emma. Well, let me set the record straight. I'm finished school now, but along the lines with student loans and everything that has to go hand in hand with that, I think it's time for people to start taking responsibility and start learning how to pay back those kinds of things, because just pushing back the deadline doesn't really give anyone the sense of responsibility or initiative to want to take control over the next steps of their career and their futures once college is finished. And only prolonging it doesn't make it easier to pay. It makes it harder because debt increases over time. So these students don't realize that the longer this freeze is extended, the more compound interest is going to pile on top of those loans, which is going to inevitably make it a longer process to pay it off before they're debt-free and able to start moving in their careers actively.
All right. So different perspective from what we would hear perhaps from Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has called for student loan debt elimination, right? Paying that completely off and getting rid of it. I'd like to ask Morgan about sort of your decision to take out some student debt, right? You clearly thought through the process that when you took out this loan, you would have to pay them back. You made that clear, right?
So I actually talked to my parents. I don't have loans currently, so that I'm very fortunate to not be graduating with a sum of debt. But a lot of my friends that have made that decision to take out loans, a lot of it was they wanted that four-year education and chose degrees that they knew they would be able to pay off those loans very quickly, like going to med school, being an engineer. I'm studying mechanical engineering, so that is a degree that I'll be able and you can be able to pay off those debts. But for a lot of people I know, they have a lot of debt that they don't know how they're going to pay it off because their degree is not something that they're going to be able to have a job that is fruitful enough to pay off those degrees. So I think, honestly, we need to normalize going to college and getting degrees that are going to be fruitful in that, or even trade schools and having other avenues, because right now the four-year education system has been normalized to go to school and get a degree and accumulate this amount of debt that isn't always worth it in the end.
Let me go to Anthony, because you said you're post-grad, so you've been through college. You understand sort of that those payments will eventually be restarted, and you thought through what that would mean, right?
Well, of course. I mean, I knew going to college that there was no way that without paying for it or taking a loan, I was going to be able to enroll in school. I mean, even now in primary school, elementary school, and high school, if you go to a private school, if you go to any other kind of charter schools, there's either government assistance that helps pay for students' books, which is why you see the decline in material. You know, in elementary schools that are private, you know, parents have to pay for the students individually per quarter. So there's always money being spent when you go to school. Now, for myself and the degree that I got, I'm really not using it much. It was a music and art degree, but I had to pay for that. I had to pay for my classes, and I knew that going in, this was something that I was willing to risk and willing to undergo. Now, I'm debt-free now, But the process of getting debt-free was a hike in itself, because I learned that by missing payments, you incur interest. By missing deadlines, I was like, it compounds. And now by freezing it, you compound and you multiply the amount of money that students in this economy are going to have to pay back. So anything that you want now, by hearing Congress people like AOC, by telling people that they just want to erase debt, it doesn't disappear. That debt gets put on the next generation of students that are going to come into school, which means that college enrollment, tuition, books, and everything else, those prices that we see now are going to triple to try and start getting that money back.
Yeah, you took out the loans and you paid them back because you knew that was required. Lily, let me just go to you because these conversations that we're having, it might not be as common that you would see either online or on student campuses as well. They would say, thank goodness, I've got that delay. I've got a little bit more time to pay back my student loan debts. Have you come into contact with students who think that way? And how do you communicate with them about that?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I was fortunate enough to go to my Division I school as an athlete. So here's the problem. The conversation needs to be centered around college in general. And student debt is a side effect of a larger issue, which is just way too many kids in college. College is a business. So as the demand increases, so does the supply, and thus the price of it. So when you have 20 million students at any given time going to a university, and thus 50 million people in debt, the conversation needs to be around, why do we have so many people taking money out that's not theirs to study things that don't matter, to find jobs that don't exist? College is good if you're like Morgan and you're going for a skill or a suit of sorts, an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor. If you're going to find yourself, you're going to lose everything about yourself, including all of your money. So I try to have that conversation with kids. Why are you here? Why are you going to college? If you're going to study African and lesbian poetry, you're going to end up $50,000, $60,000 in debt without a job.
Think
so
it through.
That's where the conversation needs to be.
Absolutely. Okay. Very interesting perspectives you might not hear everywhere else. Morgan McMichaels, who joined us earlier, Lily Stanley, and Anthony Watson, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Amanda?